So the plan is over a series of videos to update you on the progress of this big painting that I'm doing. And every single time I do, I want to give you as much insight into my process as possible so you can see what actually makes a painting work. All right, welcome to Paint Coach. If you're new to the channel, my name is Chris Fornatero and I help thousands of students every single month get better at painting through my online courses and tutorials. So I got a big canvas here. It is a, 24 by 36 inch painting, and I decided to do this painting on this size canvas because I had a box of them and I needed to use them. I bought a box of these about a couple of years ago and I was like, I need to do a big painting for these. And also this size is what fits in the frame that you see behind me in all my videos. So hopefully if this turns out well, that will be the new painting that is behind me in the frame. Now this is going to be a scene from Thailand. I went there for my honeymoon in March and just got so many great reference photos and just knew I wanted to do a big Thailand painting. I've done a couple other Thailand paintings, but this one I really wanted to do big. So I'm going to walk you through just like what I've thought about and what decisions I've made and how I've gotten to this beginning drawing stage. So the first thing I'm going to talk about is just what I see when I look at this drawing and what I've done. And first off, this isn't done from just one reference photo. I had a few reference photos and I had to kind of pull different elements from each one to make this. And I know that can sound difficult. It really sounded difficult to me when I first heard painters do that because you're so used to, you know, you have your reference, you have the colors, the values and everything, and you copy the reference. But with landscapes in particular, I found that it's a lot more about translating the landscape. You can't copy it exactly because there's things that you're gonna have to shift and move and make decisions on to make it a better painting, whether that's the composition, the colors, the values, things like that. So here I'm just thinking about values. I toned the canvas with a wash of burnt sienna and ultramarine blue. And first off, this isn't technically canvas, it's linen. It's Centurion oil primed linen. So just want to say that first off. So I toned it first, and that's my midtone. That's like what you see, you know, here. And then I just used that same mixture, the burnt sienna and ultramarine blue, to draw in the darks. And then I take a paper towel with a little paint thinner sometimes and wipe away the lights. Do you have to do this like when you paint? No. Is this technically an underpainting? I guess. I just call it a value map because that's all I care about right now is just mapping out my values. Granted, I did do a bunch of sketches first on paper to figure out this value composition. If you've seen any of my videos, you've probably seen me do those. But when I'm doing a value composition, what I'm thinking about mostly is being dynamic. And when I mean dynamic, I mean we have three values here: dark, midtone, and light. Ideally, I want, when you first look at the painting, it to be obvious which one of those three is taking up the most space. And I want it to be obvious which one of those three is taking up the least space. So for this one, it's pretty clear and obvious. Midtone's taking up the most space. The light is taking up the least space. So I'm like, okay, I'm good there. Now, another thing that I do, or I like to do, is I like to divide my canvas up into 4 quadrants. So I just line down the middle, line across, and I compare each quadrant and I try and make sure that they are all relatively different, especially the ones that are opposite. For example, this quadrant down here has a whole lot of dark. It's the quadrant with the most dark. So opposite of it, I want it to be the quadrant with the least dark, which it is. There's no dark in there at all. That's what I'm looking for. Same with here, like this quadrant, there's some dark, it's a little bit, but there's definitely more dark in here. It's different enough that it's going to be dynamic. Same thing with just bottom and top. Bottom definitely has a lot more dark than the top does. Same side to side. Right side has a lot more dark than the left side. Now, another big decision I wanted to make was like how much of this grass field to show. I'd done a version where I had it be mostly the field, like the house was a little higher and a little smaller, and most of the canvas was the field. I had another one was the opposite where it zoomed in more here and there's even less of the field. And I even did a small little 9x12 here, kind of that version with a lot less field, and mainly did this to kind of get a hang of the colors, get a sense of, you know, the greens and the atmospheric perspective, and painting the house and everything. So I've done drawings, I've done a little study, and now I'm to here. And you'll notice that I added in a path here. I mainly did that as a way to kind of lead you into the painting. This is all going to be shadow, and I don't have a reference photo for the path, but I have painted enough paths and shadow from real life plein air painting and, you know, here in the studio, that I feel pretty confident that I can paint and make up that path. Hopefully in a later video when I'm painting it, I'll explain more about like how I know how to paint that path, like what I'm thinking about color wise. I added in this. This is going to be really fun to paint. I found it in one of my reference photos up close, this post with these big leaves kind of growing on it. And I initially didn't have this here, but I felt like this diagonal was so strong. I was like, I feel like I need something to counteract that. I also felt like I didn't really have a foreground. It's good to try and have like a foreground, middle ground, and background. And, you know, I felt like this was just middle ground. This was background. I didn't really have a foreground. And so this was nice to, one, have a foreground. So it's like another step in the painting, but also it's a good sharp counter angle. Whenever you have a strong angle like this in your painting, it's always good to try and counter it with its opposite angle somewhere else. So it's nice that it comes in here, kind of counteracts that. Now, at this stage, it's just a lot of composition. If you struggle with composition, I've made a composition coaching guide. It's completely free. It's a series of short, easy to understand videos where I break down composition so you can understand it and start implementing it in your own paintings. If you want to check that out, I'll put a link to it in the description of this video. Now, I've also added in, like, I'm going to put some little stairs here, like a little path. I thought it'd be kind of interesting and nice, and a little something, a little directional, bring you here. It's always good to just try and have the viewer's eye moving around the painting, so you can kind of come through this path, you know, your eye kind of comes to this post, then comes up in this mountain, this, you know, I purposely put this here to angle down to the house here. You know, even this little mountain over here, I wanted to angle it down to the house, to my focal point. Now, speaking of a focal point, you'll notice that this area where the light's hitting the house, which is like the reference photo, I just, you know, put like an extra little awning here to have more shadow, but this is the only place in the painting where a dark is dark, or where a dark meets a light. You know, I got light here, but it doesn't touch a dark. Light here never touches a dark. You know, all dark down here, but it's only touching midtone. That way, this is going to be the area of highest contrast, which means that's where I want the viewer's eye to go. Again, most of the time it's good to try and have that focal point be in the middle ground. If the focal point's in the foreground, you kind of can run the risk of the viewer just getting there and then stopping, not moving through the painting. If I put it like in the background, you run the risk of the viewer like kind of getting there and then not going anywhere else in the painting. Is that a hard, fast rule? No, but it's what I try to do and tends to work. Now, yes, I've done a lot of planning for this, and when I look at this, there's no part of this painting that is a mystery to me. Like, I can look at any section, like I know, you know, how I'm going to go about painting that water. I know how I'm going to go about painting the mountain. I know how I'm going to paint these buildings in the distance. I know I'm going to paint that path, this grass, this house. I look at it, I go, okay, I know how I'm going to go about doing that. That doesn't mean that I'm not going to have surprises, like good surprises when I paint it, or discover new things, but I've found that it's good to go into a painting confident about every section of the painting. In the past, I'd go into certain paintings and I'd feel like really good about one part, but there's another part that was like, don't know how I'm going to do that. I kind of want to avoid that. I don't want to think about that. I just want to get to the fun part and do that. And I'd get in the painting, I'd do the fun part, and then the part that I didn't know how I was going to do wouldn't go well and ruin the whole painting, and I felt like I ended up wasting my time. So, moral of the story is, try and have a plan for your paintings. If there's a section that you feel uncomfortable about going in, don't feel like you're going to magically find the answer when you're painting. Try to identify why you don't know that area. And I can almost guarantee you that the answer is going to fall in one of the fundamentals, meaning drawing, composition, value, color, or edges. The reason that that part is a mystery to you is because you're lacking certain knowledge in those fundamentals in terms of that painting in that area. So this is where I am with this painting. Next part, I'm going to actually start painting it. So once I get to a certain part with the painting, I'll probably make another video and let you know like what I'm discovering, like what's happening, and then how I'm making decisions. Hope you found this video helpful. I know this is a different kind of video, different style of video. If you found it helpful, please let me know in the comments, and I'll keep making more videos like this. If you want some like bite-sized, minute-long, quick lessons, I got those on my Instagram at Forza43. I'm Chris Fornatero, here telling you to go get painting.